we are hearing and talking a lot about Web 3.0. I talk to a lot of companies, and sometimes they feel a pain that their developer teams have to push everything all the way to the cloud, which is not needed in most cases. And sometimes they just are working on something locally, and they crave for the good old Web 1.0 experience where they were even running mail servers on their own. Of course, they don't want to run web server or mail server today, but they do crave for owning a lot of stack. They do care about controlling quite a lot of things instead of depending on cloud for everything. There may be a lot of different reasons why organizations don't want to send their data all the way to the centralized cloud. What are your thoughts about that, and what role do you think 5G can play in enabling that kind of experience?
Right. So if I've done anything well today, it's to simulate or to push this notion that 5G really is about connectivity and computing fusing together, right? There was a very famous engineer at Sun Microsystems, John Gage, I believe is his name, that said the network is the computer. It's a trademark now of Cloudflare's. That is essentially what I see. So to answer your question directly, I think that we're going to get to a world, and we're already seeing it right now, where exabytes worth of data is being generated, and moving exabytes worth of data to a public cloud for processing and storing and rendering inside an application, either economically or from a physics perspective, just doesn't make sense. We have several teams that what they do, they're generating terabytes and petabytes worth of annually, and moving all that to cloud instances for processing just doesn't make sense because their customers want real-time analytics. They want real-time access to that, the outcome of that data. So the edge becomes a really interesting space where that starts to happen. Now, if you take this notion of connectivity and computing really fusing to an app developer, they don't have to think about is what I'm trying to connect to connected, because it is, and they don't have to necessarily worry about, well, where's that all that new data being processed, or created, where's it going to be processed? That essentially will get federated out to these, vast edge networks. So they could be edge networks in the service provider world. They could be edge networks that are tucked behind private enterprise branch networks themselves, right? So to them, I think the edge is the wild west of opportunity and possibility. But with that comes a ton of complexity. I think over time, and you're starting to see this from the big cloud vendors, they all have edge stories and capabilities that are extensions of their core cloud capabilities that are moving further to edge. That's indicative of my world of how important the edge is going to be. So I think the data sovereignty and all that fun stuff is one matter, and that's a whole other conversation. Certainly in different areas of the world where that's really taken seriously. But here in the United States, what I'm seeing is early days of the proliferation of new data that's being generated that needs to be processed locally because the use case demands that the insights from that are actually near real time, if not real time. And that's where the edge is really going to start to shine. I'll give you another example. The average vehicle today is generating north of 300 terabytes or gigabytes worth of data a day. And to the automakers, they really need tidbits of that data to inform their predictive maintenance and other things that they want to do in those vehicles to ultimately create a better experience for their customers. Well, are you going to move 300 gigabits of data across a fleet of 1 million plus vehicles a day to a public cloud instance? While that's possible today, in many respects, it makes a lot of sense to actually process some of that data in nearby edge computing world. And that's where I think things are going to be going long term. Now, once we've really broken into that edge world as a developer ecosystem and really understand its capabilities and all of the capabilities around the edge really start to come to play, what I predict is going to happen is a lot of new data capabilities are going to be extracted, and whatever those use cases are, processed locally, maybe even stored locally, depending on what the use case demands. And it's going to parlay itself very well to where the big cloud services exist today, and extending the very high level services from those in big AI, big ML, big computer vision as an extension out to the edge. So that's where I'm super excited. And just to plug why we started the lab, I think that's a really interesting, exciting, compelling area for the service providers to maybe even play a role in some of that as well, because their networks are connecting to a lot of these systems and devices and such.